it was just that simple. We're going to Mass every Sunday, period.
Father Steve Williams here with another episode of Saints in the Parish podcast, along with my co-host, Donald Paul Maddox. Let us begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Mm-hmm. Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the blessings that you give us in our lives. We thank you for many people who have been blessed with some athletic ability and the way they use that athletic ability for your greater glory and for entertainment for all of us. Certainly enjoy that. We pray to keep all of them safe and keep them, injury-free. And we ask, as always, the Blessed Mary, Ever Virgin's intercession. And we ask God's blessing to send upon us, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Well, Donald Paul, this morning we're extremely excited to have Philip Rivers. He was an NFL quarterback for a long time, and I won't try and botch the teams that you played for. I know you only played for a few teams, but I'll let you just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and certainly your Catholicism, which is an extremely important part of why you're here with us today. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Father Steve. Donald Paul, thanks for having me. Yeah, so you mentioned NFL. I'll go back. I'll go back.
Okay, that'll be in there. That'll be good.
I grew up in North Alabama in Decatur. That area, actually, the Catholic world in that area, the Huntsville, that region has really grown in the last 25 years.
Right.
Wasn't as common when I was growing up.
Catholic,
really small.
John Paul II High School probably wasn't there when you were there, right?
Was not there.
Wow.
So really small, but grew up in the faith. Mom and dad. And really growing up, one of the basic fundamentals that we had as a family, which is critical, right, is we just never miss Mass on Sunday. And obviously you grow in certain areas, and then you grow to love the Rosary, and you grow to, but it was just that simple. We're going to Mass every Sunday, period. And that was something that was just very much instilled in me when I went off to college, and I went off to NC State in Raleigh. And I guess I better go back to Tiffany, my wife. We met in middle school, so we actually knew each other all the way up, middle school, high school. Got married after my first year at NC State. So being married in college and playing football and the whole deal was pretty crazy. Mom and Dad moved up to Raleigh. Dad had put in 25 years as a high school coach here in Alabama, so he could retire in Alabama, and then they were outside of Raleigh about 30 minutes, a new high school there, and so they were close to be able to come to the games.
Was he working at a high school?
He was the head coach there,
and
outside of Raleigh, brand new school. Because at the time, so I have two siblings, brother and sister. My brother's 11 years younger, and sister's 16 years younger, so they were still real young. I was an 18, 19-year-old freshman, so they were young. Right. So it was an easy move for them. So Raleigh for 4 years, and then moved to San Diego. So San Diego for 16, and it was for me being grown up in Alabama and in the South, I'd never been west of the Mississippi, but I think one time in my life, I was like, where in the world am I going?
Wow, I'm so close to Tijuana too, right? Wow, that's probably crazy. There. And you were in San Diego for a long time.
16 years.
Oh wow, that's a long time. That's a long time.
And it was. Early on it was a little bit tough. You're just so far away from home and family, and it's a different culture out there. And but then it really grew to become home, and mainly because of the church. In the faith, and you meet the people in the church, the community.
And I know there's some really faithful people that live in California. Sometimes they get kind of a bad rap because California kind of crazy, but there's a lot of very, very faithful people out there in California.
No, we really found a good community there. It takes a little time, like anything, and.
Plus, you were having children, and that, of course,
in
addition to being real active in the football, you were also having lots of young people.
Right. Yeah. So Hallie was born actually right before my junior year in college, and then she was the first of now 10. So it's been kind of about every couple of years. So 16 in San Diego, and then 1 year in Indianapolis, which ended up being that COVID season, which was just so weird for everybody. Pulling into the building, pulling into the facility every day. There's just a little side note of that year that we had to get the nose swab every morning.
Oh my gosh.
I think we figured out it was 180 straight days or something. It's like, what in the world is going on? So 1 year in Indy, and then now been here, just finished fourth season here. So it's crazy. It's been 4 years already, four seasons. So
that's awesome.
And we're loving it here in our community here. Even though we grew up in the northern part of the state, just being home, and it just feels it felt like home rather quickly. So thankful for that.
Yeah,
so,
I went to seminary for almost a year and a half in Indiana at St. Meinrad, and I am not missing
Those
that.
winners.
The winter, the food, the everything. It always felt good to cross the state line coming back home. So it was good.
So I bet you the NIL money probably would have been helpful for you in North Carolina State. Can you even imagine how that's changed?
I'm telling you, yeah. We look back and are thankful for those times because it was we grew. But man, no kidding.
There was some. You couldn't get a ride from the airport, or they would any kind of
some
gifts,
kind of violation,
some kind of violation or whatever. And yet it's kind of interesting, isn't it? How in those tough times, it does kind of force you to say what's really important. But so tell us a little bit about faith and family.
Yeah, no, and I think just real quick before we go, you touching on that in high school, you probably watch more high school sports than you watch anything, and it's probably its most purest form is at the high school level. You know what I mean? You take out all the other stuff that comes with it, and you have a range of guys from guys that'll have a chance to go play college football to guys that will never play anything else beyond high school.
This will be it,
and that's why it's awesome. And so through sports too. That to me, there's so many virtues and things that you grow in from the sport, that you grow in your faith life from the sport. But so faith and family, for me, it was faith, family, and football. It was the 3 F's, and it can become a little cliche. You hear that tossed around a little bit, but truly, at least, and we all fall short, but I tried to, that was kind of, let's keep that priority. And I really loved playing football, but it's got to come third. It had to come third in that order. But they were also intertwined. The faith part of leading, obviously husband and wife, and then leading our children, and then that part of it with the family, and then certainly the football was connected because that's what that was what I was doing every day. And so there was, and again, the virtue, all the sacrifice and commitment and teamwork, all the things that you were learning through the ups and downs of my sport were all applicable to our family life, and then they all apply in the faith. I mean, they all intertwine, and but making that faith part the priority. And again, I think we all, my favorite Latin phrase, nunc cepi, you're always beginning again, because we always fall short. Right. You always,
absolutely.
But then just start again and start again and start again. You're always starting again.
I'll bet you were probably maybe even back to high school, and certainly probably college, and then later in the NFL. I bet you probably said to yourself many times while you were playing, like, there's probably nowhere else in the whole world than you want to be than right here, right now. I know. And I think it's, as you get older, you realize that, you don't take any moment for granted, but when you're younger, it's just human nature. I think you're always looking for what's next. Where am I going to get to go to school? And where am I going to do it? I can't wait till one day I do this and do this. And it's like, man, all of us probably wish, can we rewind? Yeah, we can. Oh, absolutely.
Where's the time going?
I even say to myself, if I had a chance to do it over again, I might do it a little different. You know what I mean? Because now what I know now,
you learn.
And that's part of the reason why I love talking to so many young people, because I'm helping them understand, about this, about marriage. I'm helping them understand about, getting a good job, getting a degree, getting a good education, or whatever it may be, So I remember talking to you a little bit your first year. It was difficult because you really did miss playing. Yeah. And now you're coaching, and you probably wanted to, particularly for St. Michael, because let's be honest, I mean, this is a little startup. At the time, I guess we were 2A or 3A Catholic school, and we struggled a little bit in football, but we struggled, and that led us, I think, to where we are now, and the fact that we did struggle, but I bet that was a big transition for you.
It was, especially when the season ended. You had the seasons were over. It was Halloween.
Yeah, right.
And I go, wait a minute, football's over. We still got months to go.
Yeah.
So that was tough the first few years, and because I was just so programmed to being, playing. But being a part of a team, that was big for me. A lot of people ask me, why'd you get into coaching right away? And it was like, I don't know what I would have done without that team, and having a scoreboard on Friday night, now something where you're impacting and you're being able to compete. So being a part of the locker room was big in that transition, and it was actually a lot smoother than I thought. But you mentioned these boys, and one of the other things I was kind of the theme this year was don't miss this, which is another way of saying, be in the now, but don't miss this. I just remind them, because I remember Friday night football when I remember them. and how great that day, and wearing your jersey to school and all those things. Like, don't miss this, because you're ready to looking for where you're going to go. Don't let that burden you. Being where you are now. But you mentioned incorporating the faith, and we have. I think you've probably seen. He has a YouTube clip. Father Burke Masters. He was with the Cubs, the pastor for the Cubs, and the chaplain for the Cubs, and so we kind of watch a clip of his every day as we get started, and try to always incorporate that and that's the beauty of being in a Catholic school. It probably isn't faith, family, and football. Football is probably not third on all of our guys' list, right? But that's okay. But it needs to be. But the faith and family part, and that we steer it that way, and it's not just. And again, as coaches, right, we get antsy, want to hurry up and get to practice. But it's like, hold on, guys, like we can wait 10 minutes or 5 minutes to start our day the right way, because those I just feel like the impressions made, not necessarily from me, but just in general, that is the fabric of what we're doing is first. And maybe it hits when they're 28, right, or they're 38, or who knows.
So I know you have a wonderful family, and you love your family very, very much, and that's been an incredible part of your life too. Yeah,
it really has. Tiffany, again, we're best friends, and that certainly is awesome, being married to your best friend. For us, really, people say, did you always want 10 children? Did you always know? And it's really like, I don't know, just open to what, right? Because you never know. I mean, some people may have wanted 10 and only got to have 3.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So, and that goes back to really I say about going to Mass every Sunday, right? The obedience part of, hey, and then that's what it was with our, our marriage is just in obedience. And then you grow it, and now we see the fruits of, we have a grandchild now. It's like,
that's
wow,
right.
This is awesome. I got a 1-year-old son and a 3-month-old grandson. They're exactly a year apart. So Father Steve, I always joke, if I can still be at St. Michael in 16 years, I may have a son throw a touchdown to a grandson.
We don't ever know. Cool. And then you have another daughter getting ready to get married too. So
it's awesome. The family aspect of it's been awesome, and again, we fall short in this aspect, but as the dad, but Tiffany obviously is a huge impact and factor in this, but leading them in the home, right, with the rosary and with so many different things, and we fall short, right? You get out of routine, you get out of whack, and you're like, man, we got to get back, and then how about when we were doing so good at time? Because those memories, Caroline and all of those, they remember all that, right? Having a prayer jar that we pull out an intention for, someone, and that they would write on, all those things are those visuals. They're long lasting for them.
And here, as she prepares to get married, she's going to want to incorporate that into her life too. So
how did that look like in college and then in the NFL, like that, incorporating that prayer in the family, like when you were significantly more busy than you are right now, or even like you're at a away game, like you're gone for the most of the weekend, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's I think it takes practice, right? And you get better at it through time as time goes, but it's making it a priority. I mean, again, it's that, and it's sometimes hard, right? Sometimes a challenge. You just don't, you don't really feel like it, right? But it's making it a priority. But for me, my work day and my work week, for the most part, even in season, I was home for dinner every night, for the most part, unless we had a Friday trip to New England. Well, then I was gone for the weekend, like you said. But I was, and I kind of set it up that way where I went in earlier. To get my extra stuff in, so that when the day ended, I could go home, so I could be there with them at the end of the day, and we could eat together, and we could be together in the evenings. And because the flip side of that is, and some guys, it works different for different ways. Some guys would not go in as early, and they would end up staying late, and they get home at 8 o'clock. To me, that mealtime and tuck-in time
was super important.
And I'm sure you took the opportunity when the family could come around, and I'm sure some of your friends on the team probably loved your children.
Oh, they did. Oh, no, it was awesome to bring them up there on our off days, or even they would come to training camp practices. And I had a few guys telling me it was how impactful it was for them. We didn't even have the conversation about it, seeing them.
Right.
Seeing, a little bit of a 2, a 4, 6, and 8-year-old running around, and Tiffany coming in carrying one, and them running and playing and laughing, and they're like, man,
that's like different.
But it was joyful and happy. So that was impactful in some ways. And so you just never know. You never know what impact you may have and that just living the family life.
Right.
Yeah, I think about, I see y'all come to church, and y'all have to make sure, and I can't imagine, because a lot of people say to me, Father, I have these little ones, and it's hard to get to Mass, with all the, getting them. Y'all have to get there early, because if you don't get there early, you don't get a seat, for the whole family. So, right, but it's fun. But that's been a priority. And I know just a lot of people will say, I'm just busy, I don't have time, and have a lot of other things going on in my life, but you seem to make that a priority, and then other things kind of fall in place.
Yeah, and I think too, it's another one of our team phrases that I've learned that I share with our guys that I got from a coach is the 3 most dangerous words are "I got it." Right, you were saying about being uncoachable. It's like, no, I got it. Like, we never got it, And so I always am first to say we don't have it all figured out. We're working towards trying to get it right, and you'll never get it until ultimately. But so and we certainly fallen short many of times. But I think it's that to me, I learned it is not putting God in a box. Like, hey, he's not your check in with him, right? You have spend your 5 minutes, and then like we're push the door back in, and then I'm going on with my day. And so for me, that was just helpful because. In times when it is very busy and you have to be realistic with yourself, sometimes it gets crazy and you're like, I was about to do this, and then someone cried or someone needed something or someone, and it happens with Tiffany all the time, in terms of getting pulled one way or the other. And so, but there's just so many ways to converse, right, with God. I'm thinking about in prayer throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
It can be brief and short. Just acknowledging, I don't know, just a beautiful day when you walk outside.
And even just offer those up.
Yeah.
And thanks to God. And the other thing that I've seen with big families that I really seem to enjoy a whole lot is that the young people themselves, the children themselves, become kind of friends with each other and helpful to each other. And it may not necessarily be, the second and third child, but maybe the oldest and the fourth child seem to connect a little bit. And that's kind of joyful too.
And that's awesome as they grow up, because I think like any household, they fight, right? I mean, they're going to fight and fuss and argue, and I think it's, you certainly want to encourage not doing that, but I think that's part of every house anywhere. But as they've gotten older too, seeing the friendships form and like you said, it's not necessarily always the ones that are side by side. It's like, wow, they got a unique little friendship, And,
what are maybe if you had to offer some suggestion for married life and for parents of children, what are some things that you've learned over the years that you think would be really helpful to people to trying to live a more faithful life and in raising a family and
Well, I think for Tiffany and I think it's our strong relationship, because I think that is felt throughout the children feel that. Right.
Yeah.
And as my girls, and again, I keep saying this, we don't do everything perfect, but as my girls have gotten older, when it's my birthday or Father's Day or whatever, it's been the most meaningful notes they've written is, we appreciate how you treat Mom. That's helped us. Like things like that, that you go, wow, I'm not. And so those things I think are felt. It's like I say about the players at football, like they know, right? The kids know. You don't fool them. No. And so the same way with your children, they know. Yeah. I mean, you're not. As they get older, they kind of know.
I always, don't fall in have lots of words. Like we'll say, this is the way you ought to live. And duty, we have a couple of words that we love to talk about. One of mine is osmosis. I love for us to learn things through osmosis, just what we see, and then incorporate that into our lives. And that's the way it's been for the saints. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why we encourage people to read the lives of the saints. And Donald Paul is getting ready to have his second child, and he's probably going to name it after St. Thomas the Apostle. And we were just talking about how just naming it after the saints. He has St. James after St. James, his first son, and I think that's just really helpful, because they'll grow up learning those stories. And you'll hear the story of Thomas the Apostle, and everybody will call him Doubting Thomas or whatever. But then he's also the one that said, "Well, where should we go, Lord? You are the way, the truth, and the life." I mean, so we hear a lot of good things about that. So
all the saint stories are incredible, and the kids they love those.
And his middle name is Joseph after Joseph Ratzinger. so
Yeah,
I'll
right.
also get to help him.
I think the
help
other
him
thing,
learn.
Father, is just trying to be intentional about that family, just prayer time. And sometimes it's kind of crazy. It's like, well, I don't know, maybe the 2-year-old's crawling around and goes out of the room, or it's okay. It's okay. Or you may not even get through. You may just do a decade. I don't know. It may turn in, and then it turns into a conversation, and then it's
right.
And then there's something innocent about the younger children that even help the older children that aren't so innocent, because they're maturing, but there's something about their innocence that wants the older ones to continue to help them to grow in their life too, and that really makes it worthwhile. Well, we'll pivot back here to a little bit of football, because that's just a great thing to talk about, and how important football is, and in our lives or whatever though. So things have changed a lot since when you played in college. How do you see this all? And I'm also going to say this because you probably have one or two that may play in college football, so I know your son Gunner's a quarterback for the St. Michael Cardinals, and I know a couple of colleges may be interested in him, and so I'm sure you're kind of helping guide him. How do you see all this kind of panning out?
Yeah, it's just changed so much. I mean, when I was in 2000s when I graduated, but it was, you were sending VHS tapes, to colleges. They didn't know how any other way to see you. And now they have access
4K
to
of everything.
They have access to our huddle stuff right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They have everything, and now there's all these recruiting sites, and they have everything posted, and here's these highlights and this highlight.
Yeah,
so it's just done a little differently. The recruiting, obviously, we mentioned a little bit of the NIL stuff is just crazy now how that's changed in the transfer portal. But used to could only transfer if you could transfer, but you had to sit out.
Yeah, exactly.
You had to sit out a year,
which is crazy.
Or
that's costly.
You could graduate. If you graduate, a graduate transfer didn't have to sit out.
Okay,
but that was it. There wasn't. Now, they have two different periods where they can transfer. They can transfer in the December window, and then they can transfer in the spring window. Mm-hmm. And it's open free agency every year,
because it depends on how much money a college has to pay for people
that
transferring.
Or used to, we talked about some of the virtue you learn in sport. Now, well, if you got beat out and you're unhappy, you just leave.
right.
There is no let's push through this a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Compete and work, and maybe you just,
and you never can tell that first string quarterback may get hurt, and then here's your time. But
so that's just changed.
A little bit impatient.
That part has changed so much.
How has that affected coaching? Like for you, obviously you're not a college coach, but like preparing men to go through adversity, and then obviously that translates to the faith, and but it's like I might not get what I want initially, but I need to persevere through.
Yeah, well, it is exactly that, and I think that's why at the high school level, to me, it's in its purest form, right? I mean, certainly you can leave in high school too and go to another school if you're unhappy with the coach or whatever, or unhappy with your playing time. But those are the lessons that's exactly what we're trying to build them for, so they can, because that is real life. At some point, you can't run from everything,
right?
It's like, well, I didn't get this, so I'm going to this school and to this school and this school. It's like, well, what are you ever going to have to bear down and face something that's not hard, that's not easy? I mean, so. But it was probably 15 years ago, maybe not quite that long ago, and I remember Steve Spurrier, maybe it was a little longer than that. If Steve Spurrier mentioned, this is going back to the whole college getting, that we should be paying these guys something, and if they would have done that 15 years ago, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now. I mean, because it was a big deal to go to school for free.
Yeah,
that was a big deal. You get a full scholarship, and they're going to feed you, and they're going to house you there.
And you got a degree, and you had a career after football.
Yeah, it was a big deal. But if they were giving the guys, a smaller amount, we would have gotten into this, and everybody would have gotten the same, and they wouldn't have been, wondering if their campus meal card was running out. I mean, that's the type of real life stuff that we lived 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And now they didn't need to jump to millions of dollars. For these guys that are 18 and 19.
Well, that's another thing. Some get millions of dollars, and then some, I saw a 30-30 on Riley Leonard about him helping out with his offensive line. That was very moving, because they didn't get the same that necessarily he was offered, and so it was very, very moving. But But come on, most people aren't like that.
No,
most people are like, what can I get out of it? What can I get out
and
of
at
it?
18, 19.
And they have agents now that are,
I know.
wanting to do that too. So it's kind of wild. Yeah, we hope that doesn't filter down too far. We don't want the transfer portal in high school or any of that.
No, I know.
You know
So far, Alabama's done a good job.
Yeah, they've done a good job. Same thing. You have to sit out a year. If you had to sit out for a year, that would be costly in high school or whatever, though. So I know your son, Gunner's the quarterback of the team. It's kind of, he had some pretty good records this year, didn't he? I mean, he had some pretty good season.
He had another good season. It's been a lot of fun coaching. I mean, I got to play for my dad, which is really, 4 years in college, 17 years in the NFL, and then I don't know, it's 20-something years of football. Some of my favorite memories might be from my high school memories playing for my dad. So we're enjoying that, and then Pete's, of course, the ball boy and the middle school quarterback, and then, of course, Tiffany and the girls are in the stands, and my dad usually stands way down on the other end, kind of pacing,
try not to
and
catch.
Mom's up there into it as ever. So it's kind of, come full circle in 30 years ago when I was playing, and little brother was the ball boy, and now Steven's the coach.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So nephews and nieces are here, and so it's been awesome. And Gunner's, I think the thing that I'm as a parent most proud of is he's a good teammate to these guys, and the way he interacts with his teammates. He didn't come in as, well, I'm going to be Philip Rivers' son's quarterback, and you know what I mean. And so that part, I think the guys appreciate that he just wants to be a teammate and one of them, and that goes a long way, regardless of him, my son or not. As the quarterback, that goes a long way. That you're one of the guys. You mentioned Riley, the guys. I mean, quickly. He was only there 1 year, and you saw how they responded to him. It's because of how genuine he was.
I think humility. Yeah. I think he came in and they genuine, and also Gunner being a little bit younger. Yeah. He actually needed some of those older guys to kind of So it really worked out well and worked in his favor. And also, I think I once again, you were saying you can't fool these teenagers. They can read through it. I think that quickly they recognize that that they were going to work together, and how important that is. And matter of fact, I just had a conversation. I was at school yesterday, and I had a conversation with one of the seniors on the baseball team. And the baseball team is, it's going to be better this year. I think they're still young, but I had a conversation with one of the seniors, and I was just like reminding them, you're the leader by default. You are the leader. Yeah. As a senior, by default, you're the leader, and probably one of the better athletes out there on the field. So that also makes you the leader, and just like if you're the quarterback or whatever, makes you the leader. And so it's so important. It's so important for to have a team and to have you're playing for more than just yourself. Yeah. And having that to really understand that so vitally important or whatever.
It was cool too. We do a retreat every year to start training camp. It's right at the beginning of our season where we've gone down to Holy Spirit Hall. We've come to Mass together at St. Lawrence as a team. And we do these. It's funny because I think back as a player, even though we did this in the NFL, and immediately when you say we're going to do some breakout sessions, right, and do some team building stuff, the immediate reaction is, right. But then once you get going, they end up enjoying it, and it's awesome hearing different guys tell a story of why they play or what something you admire about a teammate. What's a quality you admire about a teammate, and who is he? And you tell it. And so you're seeing them a little bit vulnerable with each other, right? But grow up and be in that position, or who are we? What is our team identity? All these things, and then it's because you want to give them some ownership in it all. Right, even though they're young, it's not about me and Simon and of us doing. It's like it's y'all's team, and you want them because I think the more ownership you give them, it's partial ownership, right? It's not full ownership, but they take more pride in wanting to do it.
They really do,
and it's your guys' locker room. Hey, it's not just everything is rules, because then it's just rules. That's not. I saw the other day where that's not culture, that's rules. If I just give you a bunch of rules, right? What is our culture? You guys gotta. We'll help facilitate it, but you guys gotta build that. Right. And that's been fun to see over 4 years. I mentioned yesterday with Toby, Edmiston was the last of the Edmiston boys that are been in the program now. Every year we've had football.
He just received a scholarship.
Yeah, to Belhaven. That class, this senior class, they were ninth grade. They were rising ninth graders.
That's right.
My first year. Right. So it's the first class that I've seen all the way through. Seen through the program and seeing them grow and really just a belief. Going to Jackson this year in the semifinals and to believe we'll find a way. We came up short, but they truly believed and played. You see how hard they play their hearts out. And so
and they, I think seriously. honestly, they fell short playing Jackson, but I think they played Jackson. They're one of the best teams that played Jackson.
Oh yeah,
because
no
you
question,
look at all the other teams that Jackson played, they beat
Right.
them by like these numbers that were crazy,
Right.
and even so we didn't get to move on to the next round. But I saw Jackson beat in the state championship. They beat the team they played by like
69-6.
69-6.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and so I was like, well, that kind of tells you something right there. So it's so important. So so I thought might give you an opportunity, maybe share with our listeners our some crazy story about the NFL or about college football or something that's kind of crazy or whatever.
Yeah, well, one that is kind of, it was, and it's faith related too, so even better. So it's 2007, the 2007 season, and we end up making a run into the playoffs. We beat the Tennessee Titans at home, and then we go to Indianapolis in the divisional round. And I'm dropping back to throw a screen pass to Darren Sproles, who ended up with the Saints, for a long time after us. And I feel something in my knee. When you say you hear it, and it was like I heard it,
Yeah.
And so I come off, and they say, hey, we think you tore your ACL, but whatever. And I'm like trying to put a brace on it and get back in the game, but I just couldn't. And we held on and won the game. Mm-hmm. So now we're getting ready to play. We're getting ready to play the Patriots the following Sunday in the AFC Championship game.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I go back. We fly home, and I'm wearing the team doctor out. He's like, hey, we can't solve any of this on this airplane. 4-hour flight back from Indy to San Diego. But he said, if you've torn your ACL, you may have a meniscus tear too. I don't know any way you're going to be able to play the next week. And so anyway, so I'm like, we got to figure out something. We're in the AFC Championship, the whole thing. Well, he said, well, let's just reconvene Monday. We'll get the imaging, the MRI stuff, and then we'll decide from there. Well, so I remember driving home that night just upset. I was sobbing this. We've made it to the AFC Championship game, right. And now this,
playing the Patriots.
We're one game away, and it was the Patriots were 17-0. This was the year that.
Right.
So next morning we go into the doctor and do the whole deal, and he said, yeah, you got a meniscus that we can repair. That one's not too bad, and then you have the ACL that we can't. Repair that. That's a 6 to 8 month deal. But we can clean it out and repair the meniscus, and we'll just see how you do this week. But most meniscus are 2 to 3 weeks. You don't have an ACL in your knee. I don't know how you're going to even. But I was determined to try.
Yeah.
But I leave there very dejected. He's like, we'll come back for the surgery here in like 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm up and down, emotions up and down, but I'm
right.
like, there's no way. What am I doing? Well, my mom calls and she said, hey, I have a devotion to Saint Sebastian, patron saint for athletes. And mom calls and says, hey, you're going to be able to play in this game. The game's on January 20th, which is Saint Sebastian's feast day. And I go, golly. So I kind of got chills, when she told me, but I'm like, all right, Mom, I'm going in here to have surgery. But wow, that's kind of awesome. So I have the surgery, and I'm sleeping in this machine, I'm literally sleeping in the machine to bend your knee and straightens it. I'm doing all the physical rehab things. Our parish priest there, he had the oil, the holy oil, and he's like, hey, shoot, so I was putting that on my knee as well as recovering. But I was just emotionally and spiritually, it was just like, what is going on? St. Sebastian's feast day. It felt like, man, this is surreal. But it's like, I'm on crutches on Wednesday. We have a game Sunday. Friday I practiced, and Sunday I played in the game. I had no pain, none, and I didn't have a shot in my knee or nothing. I had no pain in the game.
Yeah.
And it just felt like it was just one of those moments of surrealness.
Right.
And we lost, and I played okay. I didn't play great, and it buckled on me a few times, But I was like, this is unbelievable. It was one of those moments that was just like, wow. It was a deep connection there with God and Saint Sebastian. That was
right.
There was no other way to explain it off.
That was the year the Patriots lost to the Giants.
The Giants, the very next
crazy
week.
Yeah.
It would have been us against Eli and the Giants.
I know.
Had we won that game. So I had an ACL. Antonio Gates had a dislocated toe. LaDainian Thomas was hurt. The center was hurt. We were just decimated with injuries.
Yeah.
And we always talk about just us as guys, not making excuses, but man, if we were healthy, we'd have been.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, and the NFL's thinking about going to 18 games here.
And then preseason preseason.
I
They're
know,
talking about it being, I don't know, the season wouldn't end until March.
It's because we love football, and so we want football to keep on going.
Gosh,
but there's only so much you can
yeah.
get out of these guys.
I'm barely hanging on as it is right now.
I know. So. It's really crazy.
So as the quarterback typically is like the de facto leader. How did you handle that, like in the secular sphere of the NFL? Not demonizing the NFL, but it is just part of the secular world. So kind of, it's not a Catholic school,
right?
But,
sure.
How did that?
I tell you, you would be. I shouldn't say surprised, but there was a lot of strong men of faith in the locker room. There was.
Nice.
I mean,
awesome.
I obviously from different backgrounds and different, all different churches and things, but it was pretty strong,
Nice.
really. But now there's certainly it was. I would compare it to any other. Go into a big city and go into a high rise and take this big corporation, and if you gather them all together, you would say, oh yeah, man, some of these guys are really strong, some of them aren't. So
right.
it was real life. But I think the other part of that in that locker room was there was a great deal of respect for each guy. Whichever way. Whichever way you were. Some that didn't believe in anything.
Right.
But it was just kind of like, all right. And I had, it was very much mature in that sense.
Nice.
So that was good. That part was good. And then there were certain moments I had great conversations with guys about the faith. And then there was others that you never had one at all about the faith, but you lived in such a way, like you said, it's the St. Francis, right? Preach the gospel always, and when necessary, use words. Right.
Exactly.
It's like I said, here comes the family, and you don't know what impact that has. Or
right, exactly.
Why are you leaving in between training camp practices to go? Why are you dressing up? Well, it's a holy day. I'm going to mass.
Yeah.
And you're like, what in the world? You know what I mean? But who knows? Who knows? So those types of things. But the locker room, that was my favorite part of my whole NFL career, was being a teammate. And and in large part, it was just having fun interactions, right? Playing a game of dominoes or cutting up or joking, right? It wasn't, but being a teammate, the bus rides, all those things were awesome. I do remember when I first got to the NFL, I was nervous about mass on Sunday. I was like, what in the world?
I was going to ask about
do?
How to
like,
get a
what do
mass.
we do? But so they had mass for us every Saturday night in the hotel, available. And then on our home games, you didn't ride a bus to home games. You just drove your car and got there 2 hours before kickoff. So on home games, a lot of times we would still go as a family at 8 o'clock, and then I would go to the game. So it wasn't an issue. But on the road, when you couldn't get to, even on the road, I was certainly thankful that we had a priest there for mass in the hotel, and I took advantage of that many a times. But it was nice on the road because you're in these big cities that you never otherwise are going to go to. These beautiful churches, in Chicago and Denver, that you're like, wow, let me check, let's check maps. It's like, wow, there's a church 1 mile. I'd prefer to go to the church.
That's awesome.
But so it ended up being, in my last few years, or not last few, but a handful of my last few years, Kellen Clemens was the backup quarterback, who's one of my best friends throughout my whole career. And he was a strong Catholic guy and family, and they lived down the road from us. Tiffany and his wife were friends, and so it was fun to have that buddy, we buddied up. Hey, where do you want to go? Hey, you pick it and you find it.
That's another good lesson. In life, to have friends that are encouraging you, and what a great lesson in life. So there's so many lessons in life, and I'm sure you take the opportunity now as a coach to help these young men learn some of these lessons in life. And so that's rewarding. And as you mentioned, even having your father as a coach, and now you're coaching your son, that's kind of a really good lesson too, to be with your children and help them, lead them, guide them in wonderful ways. So I just want to take this opportunity to really thank you. I've been here a pastor for 20 years, and before I was chaplain at a high school, and I would have all these students that would graduate from high school and would go to the University of Alabama. And so then they would come home, and I would talk to them, I'd see them, and so they were all excited because Nick Saban went to Mass. And I often wanted to write Nick Saban and tell him, thank you. You're probably doing more for the faith than any of us priests are doing, because these young people, like, just his witness value was just infinitely, you know what I mean? Like, just them seeing him at church spoke volume to so many of these young people. And I think that's true with you too. I think that seeing And I mean, I've seen, other faithful, like Tim Tebow being so faithful. It really does. Riley Leonard, we were just talking about him, playing for Notre Dame and being such a faithful young man. I think that using the skills, the gifts that God has given us, really does make a difference. So I just take this opportunity to really thank you, because you, just by your witness value, you're really helping a lot of other people grow in their faith and grow closer to God. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you.
Absolutely.
So you can please take an opportunity to share this episode, and you've got the whole list of previous episodes that you can go back and look. That's a good thing about the internet, and we can do that. And appreciate you being here, Donald Paul, with us.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
So we'll just ask God's blessing upon us as we enjoy this beautiful day, in the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.